all secondary schools in England will have to teach pupils about issues such as consent, sharing intimate images and healthy relationships under the government's plans to tackle misogyny. The Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, says the aim is to prevent behaviours escalating. Our senior UK correspondent, Seema Katecha, has this report.
Violence doesn't always look like violence.
Famous faces in a new government TV campaign to raise awareness about all forms of domestic violence.
Violating her personal boundaries.
Touching her without her consent on a packed train.
Nikki's former partner was sent to prison for assaulting and controlling her.
You just want to die. You have no thoughts of your own. You're a robot. You are literally a robot. And he controls it. He's got the remote control, or he presses the buttons. You have no thoughts of your own in your head. Nothing at all. If I wanted to use the toilet, I know it sounds really pathetic, but I'd have to ask if I could use the toilet.
The government hopes by tackling the root causes of misogyny, it will prevent young men from becoming domestic abusers. So it's spending millions on training teachers to challenge prejudicial views and sending difficult students on behavioural courses to change their attitudes.
I absolutely want to get in at the very early stage, protecting children who may be being exposed to abuse maybe in their own household, but also just that discussion about a healthy relationship. Boys and girls, but particularly boys, teenage boys, I think it is vitally important.
11-year-olds to 18-year-olds talking.
Some young people think it's a good idea.
We don't get into relationships knowing if someone is abusive, and a lot of the time we don't realise that people are abusive until it's very, very hard to leave, and the only way to sort of mitigate that risk is taking a preventative approach and educating young people to spot the signs of it.
I think there is a bit of mixed messaging a bit around what it means to be a man, and how can we actually change that focus around being respectful to women and girls is the normal.
Sorry to keep you waiting. How are you all?
But some teachers argue schools already do this kind of work, while others are questioning why the domestic violence strategy is being published just before Christmas.
They're just doing it because they want to look good. They've got to put it in because everyone's complaining about it. Why would they do that? They need to make it more important than anything else, because at the moment that is what's ruining everything.
Seema Katecha, BBC News.
Well, let's speak live now to Ellie Butt, Domestic Violence Organisation Refuge, as Head of Policy and Public Affairs. And Ellie, welcome to the programme. Your reaction to what has been laid out. Why don't we start with the positives first?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, there's certainly a lot to welcome in today's long-awaited violence against women and girls strategy. I think this is probably the first truly cross-governmental strategy we've had to tackle domestic abuse and violence against women and girls. The health department, the education department, areas that are really crucial, had largely been absent. So there is definitely ambition and a real focus on long-term prevention and challenging misogynistic attitudes at the very earliest stage is certainly hugely welcome and could lead to some really positive change.
It's clearly also a huge task. If there are gaps that you see, what would they be?
Yeah, it's an absolutely enormous task. 1 in 4 women are subject to domestic abuse in their lifetime. I think everyone knows a woman or child that has been subjected to domestic abuse or sexual assault. There's an epidemic of this kind of violence in our country. A really big omission and a big hole in this strategy is where are the support services that victims and survivors will need to turn to. These services are chronically underfunded and cannot meet the demand that they have at the moment. There's some really welcome measures in this strategy, including improved responses from health agencies, where the largest number of survivors disclose the abuse they're experiencing. But that would drive up demand to services that aren't equipped at this point to meet that demand. And the government has failed to really put forward the investment that's needed to change that.
So
that would be a fundamental flaw.
That's really interesting, because part of this strategy for teachers or healthcare professionals is the extra training, the reminders, the ways of spotting victims of domestic violence, but then that leads obviously to referrals, and you think levels of investment simply, the two things don't match up?
Yeah, not at present. There's a little bit of additional funding that comes alongside the strategy, but not the significant sustained investment that we really need to see to improve services, so that every time a survivor comes forward or is referred by a state agency, that service can support them straight away. That's what we really need to see to make the ambition, the welcome, like brilliant ambition of the strategy a reality. The government will need to maintain the momentum and the focus, but they're going to have to find some additional money to make this work.
A twin final thought then. Do you think that aim to cut violence against women and girls by half is achievable? And are they right to focus on really early years to try to identify, to curtail, to cut off, to help to support youngsters and misogyny?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a real welcome shift in this strategy is that the focus on the fact we shouldn't take it as given that women and girls will be subject to abuse throughout their lives at home and in public. I think that's welcome, and having this big ambitious target is needed to really focus attention. But we need to see the ambition, the really welcome measures, the focus on tackling abuse at source and stopping people becoming perpetrators in the future. That needs to now be matched by ambitious funding to make sure that in 5-10 years' time, we can really be talking about the change that this strategy has led to.
Ellie Butt, great to talk to you. So thank you for joining us here on today's programme. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.